This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I love how it tells us it's recording now. Okay, today we're going to talk stone anchors. Who wants to kick this off?
Where do stone anchors live? That's my question, right? Are they thin clad? Are they thick stone? Can they be both? You know what I mean? Where's maybe some problem areas? Where's the benefits? That's the stuff I see often.
Yeah, when I was, 4 months ago, when I was in distributor side of things, and we would have stone manufacturers coming in saying, hey, start selling these big slabs. Like Omaha would love these things. And I'd be like, well, how do they attach? And they'd say, well, they get engineered. I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, who engineers it? And they'd say, the engineer. And I'm like, does the engineer know how to engineer it? Like, he's like, well, they just decide, are they going to use are they going to use a dowel? Are they going to, kerf it? Like, and then they got to come up with like I'm like, yeah, but who does that? And nobody could ever tell me. And so it's so funny that I now work for Holman and Bernard and they like, ooh, we do that. We like make the stone anchors. And I think that's the number one question that comes in is like, when do we need to use them? Who decides what they are? I think oftentimes we are at this space, at least in my world in Midwest, it was like we expected the stone manufacturer to tell us how to connect the stone. And they're telling us that it's the engineer to do it, but the engineer may not have ever done this before and they don't know even where to look to get the stuff. And so that's where this conversation kind of takes us a little bit of this. They call us and they say, hey, give me your stone anchors and the capacities and I can determine, how many of these things we need. And that's really not how it works. Mark, do you want to kind of walk through more of what that looks like?
Sure. So stone anchors are, for us and for anyone involved in using them, they're very much a custom product that's made specific for individual jobs. So they're not, it's not like buying a suit off the rack, so to speak. So also under the Canadian standard, and as far as I know under American standards as well, they're always stainless steel, and they're involved in supporting often very, very heavy stone units on a building, much like hanging a curtain wall. And they're made and designed with a special, sometimes with a specialist like a Pico Engineering who is involved in stone anchor engineering. And that's something that also Holman Bernard, our engineering team, is also able to do, as engineer and design these systems. So they're really, really specific anchors for hanging stone off of walls, essentially, and really, really important ones because we're dealing with some very heavy stuff, so to speak. And so in a really general term, that's what we're talking about is stainless, heavy duty anchors for hanging stone panels. So really, really important that it's done right, and really important that it's done to codes and standards, and something that requires really specialized equipment, laser cutters, bending presses, and a full turnkey design team. So
yeah, and going off that one too, I get a lot of inquiries regarding the design of the stone anchor. So when we say we engineer them, we'll basically calculate tolerances, load capacities, and people also expect us to tell them exactly what design to use. But that's not often the case because, like you said, they're very specific to job sites and job site applications. So the design is typically going to come from whatever you are seeing on your job site. And that's basically in regards to, whether you're going to be using a dowel, whether you're going to pre-drill a hole into these stones and use some kind of adhered, epoxy material to basically get that connection, whether you're just going to have a flat plate going out into your stone to hold it up. So there's a significant difference between actually engineering and designing the anchors. Typically, the design will come from the customer, and we will specify what, thickness, length, all that good stuff in order so your stone doesn't end up, like you said, falling off the building. And as you can see here, another question that we get asked a lot is, we say we can basically customize any anchor to any dimension, but there are limits to our machines. So if you scroll up on this page, you can see that on a certain thickness of the anchor, we're going to have certain degrees of bends or dimensions that our machines are going to be able to do. So that's where we can also come in and help you determine whether or not your dimensions that you get from your job site is going to be applicable to the design of the anchor.
I think one thing to consider. Go ahead, Robin.
No, I was just going to say is one thing I've always done being in sales is one of my favorite lines that I always said, and it was just made so much sense, is I can make, because we get the same calls where it says, hey, what kind of stone anchor do I need for this job? Here's the spec. And I number one, it's what is the engineer of record? What we can design them, but like Mark and Jason and Shay's already said, there's so many different variables within each individual job. There's got to be an analysis done on that project, the site conditions, the wind loads, height of the structure. That all is what's determined into how they're designed. So in terms of sales, I would always say I'm not going to recommend anything, but I will make whatever you need, so long as that you provide me with the dimensions, the drawing, whatever. And we really can. Been doing it for 75 years throughout the world. I've done several projects through companies that build the embassies. Two of the largest embassy companies in the world are stationed in Birmingham, Alabama, and we've put our stone anchors all over the world. So yes, we can make anything. We will make anything. But it's almost two different things. If you want us to design it and engineer it, that's another avenue. That's a charge. That's a cost. We've got to take time, dive into it, engineer it, then make it. We've done that a lot too. But the first thing I ask is, when I'm asked to, what do you recommend? Well, I don't recommend from the sales side. Can't recommend because number one, I don't know where the wind load. I don't even know where the job is, but I don't know how high you're going, what the height of the structure is. We've got to be able to separate whether we're engineering the project or whether we're making what you want. I always instruct anybody to go to h-b.com, type in the word stone anchors in the product search. It pulls up, not all of them, but there's at least 30 different designs, and that's not everything. There are so many more that we can do and we have the capability of doing, but that'll at least get you started. Each one of those illustrations that it pulls up, when you click on it, it pulls up a sheet. It's so simple. It pulls on a sheet that pulls up a sheet that all you have to do is literally plug in the number, the dimension for each thing that we need, and our sales team can get you a price within, I don't know, it depends on how many emails are in front of it, but it takes them about 5 to 10 minutes to do it. So that's all, understanding whether or not we're engineering the product or whether we're making a product that you want. That's really the key.
And going off that, Robin, in New York City, my territory, there are two things that I always say, or the RKL office kind of taught me to say, is that if you can draw it and it's within those tolerances that you saw on that sheet, we can make it for you. And then going back to what you were just speaking about, when people ask for recommendations, I basically tell them that all the stone anchors do the same thing. It's going to, hold your stone up. It's just how it's designed to those real job site applications, and whether or not it needs engineering to determine those thicknesses, lengths, etc., to hold that stone up.
one thing to consider is the stone anchor is only one part of the equation. So like you've talked about, we need to know the parameters of the building, we need to know its capabilities, but I think sometimes overlooked is the capabilities of the stone, the type of stone it is. Does it have a data sheet? What are its capabilities? Because at the end of the day, it's got its hand held to the stone anchor and vice versa. So that, you know, they're going to work together in that, through the life cycle of that building. So using quality products, having the accurate data, that's just as important.
Just saying I need stone anchors, what do you recommend is like going into a shoe store and saying, I need shoes. Well, do you need baseball spikes? Do you want me to measure your foot? What size do you need? There are so many different things that you've got to be able to tell that person to go from there. Now, if I want to pay a little bit of extra money and have them custom made for my foot for whatever I'm doing, that's what it reminds me of when I get that call. And I can't tell you how many times I've said that.
Hey, so like what determines if I need a stone anchor or if a regular anchor off your shelf will work for hanging stone? Is there a size that dictates it? Is it weight? Is it what are we telling folks if they're going to need a stone anchor versus can they use a thermal 2 seal?
I think it references that in the TMS 402. There's some size requirements, there's some weight requirements. I think also in comparison, not only to using a standard anchor, like a thermal 2 seal or something, but where's the line cross through the sand that we need to go from adhered to mechanically fastened or mechanically anchored? I mean, that's another one that comes up all the time.
Sorry, I think isn't it 14 pounds per square foot or per? Yeah, I want to say it's something like that. It's pretty low. It's a pretty low number that anything over a fairly low number, it has to be anchored.
And like we were talking about, that's for the entire assembly. That's not just the stone.
Right.
You know, that's everything from the insulation to the anchor to the fastener to holding up that stone. It can't exceed, I think it was 14 to 15 pounds per square force, you know, in that area of the stone.
So the other thing that comes into mind with that, then, if you're talking about how do you anchor back in an adhered stone, and we're going to want that stone to be at least 1.5 inches. We really want that stone to be 2 inches thickness so that we've got the ability to make those stone anchors and get them back in there. So some of those products that you're looking at that are thinner than that, you know, if they're over that 40 pounds per square foot, or 50, you know, if it's in the veneer world, but if it's an adherent, if it's over that, you may have to look at using something else or changing the way that you're designing something. Like we have to be mindful about the weight that we're trying to hang off of buildings right now, especially if you've got any form of continuous insulation and we're pushing that off of the wall further. When you've got these huge slabs, we've got to make sure they're going to stay on that building and then they're not going to fall off after so many years, or heaven forbid, some type of natural disaster that's going to try to tornado pull it off, or the earthquake to shake it off, all those kinds of things. That's what you're accounting for with these stone anchors and why they need to be engineered. And it's just, I think sometimes we forget that we need to give this cladding the respect it needs, because we just think, oh, we just stick it to the wall. And there's just so much more that's going into that now, especially when we're trying to make these buildings thermally efficient and give them this extra insulation layer. So we have the ability to make the product. We like it best if you will tell us and have it engineered with your engineer on record. But should you not have someone that can do that for you, we can look at it. I can't always guarantee we can get to it from our engineering side. We've just got a lot of other things that we're working on. But if you've got the time and you need the help, like, we'd be happy to send it to engineering to see if they can fit it into the queue. And anything else on that you guys are thinking when it comes to stone anchors? Any other common questions that you hear that people may want to know?
The small little tidbit, I don't want to go too long, but when you talked about getting thin with the material, a lot of that comes from being the constructability of it. You know, someone's going to have to cut if you have a 3/16 tab, but you have 1.5 inch thick stone, someone's going to have to kerf that 3/16 out. There's not much left there on either side. That's, you know, like, we've got to make sure this is constructible for the guys to get it on the wall, the people, you know, the workers, the contractors, they've got to be able to make it work. And the better that system's going to work, the better the aesthetic and the better the job's going to turn out. So, I mean, realistically, that's in my mind why we really like to see a little bit thicker material, is just looking out for the guys with feet on the ground and putting it on the wall.
I like it. Okay. If there's a need for us to offer some kind of a how to engineer with stone anchors for engineers out there, we can work with our engineering team or somebody that's a professional to offer that. If that's a need that so nobody in your market, you want to start using it, but you don't have the experience with masonry and engineering stone anchors, we may need to look at doing something like that. So let us know if that's something that's needed. And with that, we will sign off.